Finally, the saloon's open. It's time to check out this game everybody's talking about. They say it's really hard, but I bet you I can beat it first try. If you've ever played Stardew Valley, then you've probably run into this game in the saloon called Journey of the Prairie King. It's a fun little twin stick shooter that's actually pretty difficult, and it has no bearing in the actual game of Stardew Valley, but it poses a fun little challenge for those who want to play it. I myself have beaten it once, but it did take a while. I decided to recreate Journey of the Prairie King because, one, it's pretty small and had a manageable scope, I felt like, and two, just because I thought it was fun. The third and most important reason is because I wanted to pick a little project that already existed so that I could just focus on the development and coding rather than design or artwork and things like that. So anyway, let's get right into it. First things first, I found a sprite sheet online with all the art from the game, which was amazing, saved me a ton of time. So the first step was to import that into Godot, and the first thing I noticed was over here on the right side, it didn't grab all the images. Well, I brought it into Sprite and counted out the pixels, and sure enough, it was 1 pixel short. So I adjusted that and shifted everything over, popped it back into Godot, and it was working just fine. After that, I decided to set up the collision layers. Then I started building out the first level. Here it is complete, and then I added the player character. I went and set up some of the animations for the player character. The feet were all a bunch of separate small sprites that I had to go collect individually and animate separately from the rest of the body, which I thought was interesting. It took me a little while to get it working properly, but eventually I got it. Here you can see my ugly code for making this work, where now the character can run side to side, up and down, and have his body changed the right directions. Next, I made the bullet that you're going to be shooting out of the gun. And I set up these markers as different firing locations on all sides. Then I got the bullet shooting, but it didn't work out so good at first. So I got it a little bit closer, but still not right. Then I got it coming out from the right locations, just not the right angles. I finally figured out the angle situation and got that working, and then slowed the fire rate down a lot. Next step was to add some enemies. Currently they just chase after you, and the bullets don't harm them or anything. Then I made it where the bullets can kill them, and they play a death animation. I noticed that in the real game, the cacti on the border of the map actually animated. I wasn't sure how to animate tiles on a tile map, so I just decided to make a separate object altogether with an animated sprite. The next thing I did was make it so the enemies spawn randomly at predetermined locations on either side of the map. Thankfully, Journey of the Prairie King has its own wiki, which gives you all the information about all the items, all the enemies, and everything I needed to know to make this, which is super awesome and pretty much the reason I decided to do this project in the first place. So first things first, I wanted to make some items. I made an enum with all the different item names. I made a couple. Here you see the machine gun, which once you pick it up, it increases your fire rate a lot. Then there was the shotgun, which you can see adds a spread, and of course they can be put together. And then here you can see at the top of the screen I have a timer countdown, and once you defeat the very last enemy after the time has run out, the bottom opens up and you can go down to the next level. And as you can see here, now it scrolls down to the second level, which I ended up scrapping this whole thing because I couldn't figure out how to make it work the way I wanted to, but you'll see that in a second. So I had a few more items, including the ability to pick up items without using them, as you see in the top left there. If that slot is empty and you pick up an item, it'll get filled with it. If you have an item there when you pick it up, it'll just use it immediately. And to use an item, you just press the space bar. Now I've added a couple more items. I got the Sheriff's Badge and the Coffee. Sheriff's Badge basically combines the shotgun, the heavy machine gun, and the coffee. The coffee just makes you faster. And then the wagon wheel makes you shoot in every direction, which is really great. As you can see here, instead of doing the scrolling, I just went to a different scene. You know, it's not like the original, but it's close enough. I added a third level after beating the second level, and a fourth level, which the AI is now and forever pretty dumb, and they don't know how to traverse into this area, so I was wanting to fix that, but we'll get to that later. And then the boss level here, which currently still acts as a normal level. I then started working on the shop, which was really exciting. The first upgrade was a gun upgrade, which decreased the time between each shot, and as you can see, it got pretty out of hand, especially when you mix it with the wagon wheel. The second item was a speed upgrade, and as you can see, that makes for a pretty crazy combo, and let me tell you, it is not easy to play like this. Again, the wiki is super helpful for all this. I can see the prices of every upgrade and how long they all last. The third power up is damage, which is really important because A, enemies later on have more health, but B, if your upgrade is level 2 and you hit an enemy with 1 health, the bullet will continue through. It basically just subtracts the enemy's health from the bullet's health. Next I made the second enemy, which is called the spike ball. They run in and after a certain period of time will transform into just a roadblock and they don't move from that point. They start off with 2 health while moving, and they change to 7 health when they deploy. The next were these ogres, which are slower, but they have 3 health. But as you can see here on the wiki, it says that they actually destroy the spike balls on contact, which I didn't know about that, but I added that. And then here I was testing the shop where whenever I buy an upgrade, you can see that the next upgrade takes its place. Then I made it to where the shop is actually invisible until you beat the level, both on the 2nd and 4th level here, as you can see. And then I started with the boss fight again. I made it to where enemies stop spawning, and then this thing here is actually the win condition. When you hit this thing, you win. But we gotta make that show up after the boss. So to make the boss, I just made a basic player character, which was actually running off of basic platformer physics at first. Here I am controlling him, which was funny. So I went and changed that and had him run back and forth and just kind of bounce between the edges. And he also randomly would stop either in the middle, the left, or the right, or he would just keep running. I then went and got his bullet, which is slightly bigger than the regular bullet, and had him shoot while he was moving and not shoot while he was staying still, as well as playing different animations. The bullet also flew at a random trajectory between 80 and 100 degrees so that it wasn't completely straight. I then ran into this weird issue where all of the bullets were like flying through stuff when they should be colliding, and I was playing around with the different collision masks and whatnot, and I messed up everything else where the player started going through stuff. But it took me quite a while to figure out what was going on here. So long story short, what happened was my bullet's power level was way up, and so it was hitting a wall and only subtracting 1 health from the bullet. So I just changed it to where if it hit something that's not an enemy, it would just destroy it immediately. So up until now, I've been using just some random number generators to determine what items were spawned when an enemy dropped an item. But the problem with that is it was really messy and ugly, and some of the items are more rare than others. And I had it to where it was like, pick a random number between 1 and 15, and if it's 1 through 2, spawn this item, and if it's 3 through 4, spawn this item, and it was just ugly. So I found online this plugin called Weighted Choice, which allowed me to do exactly what I wanted to do without all the messy code. So as you can see here, I set up the rarity of just common and uncommon, and then I set up the item list with their names and assigned their rarity, where you can see, like, for example, the normal coin is common, but the 5 coin is uncommon. And then I simply just make a new item, and it pulls one of these randomly based on its weight, and that's that. So basically now when I run around and destroy things, whenever an item does spawn, the sheriff's badge and the 5 coin are a lot more uncommon. Then I just cleaned up my code a little bit, just grouped the variables by what they were for, whether for their level or for the player or for items. Then I made it where you can just actually kill the boss, and the boss always drops a life, which is nice. And then you can win the game. And there's actually this final cutscene that I made here, which in the real game it's actually animated and stuff, but I wasn't going to bother with that. Now this was only just World 1, and the actual Journey of the Prairie King has, I believe, 3 levels, maybe even 4, but I just didn't want to spend the time actually doing that. But I had a really good time making this first one. It was a lot of challenges and I learned a lot about different things, so I'm very glad that I did it. But there was still one thing missing I wanted to add, which was the main menu and sounds. So as you'll see here, I made a menu with music, and I also made a settings menu where you can actually adjust the sound or level, adjust the music level, or mute it completely. And then you can play. And the levels are really short now for testing, but you can hear the music, And then I skip ahead here. When you go into the boss level, it changes to the boss music. And then after you defeat the boss and go to the final level, it plays the end screen music. So that completes this project. Thank you so much for watching. Aw man, that took forever, but I finally beat it. I should get back to the farm and make sure that my crops are alright. Oh man. Not again.